I was doing my girlfriend's laundry at home over the weekend when I accidentally found a pair of white men's underwear in her bag, with her kiss marks printed on them. But I don't own any white underwear. My girlfriend had to work overtime at the office again this weekend. I was cleaning the house and doing the laundry as usual. Suddenly my phone rang, and a message popped up in the car owner group, sent by someone named Liang on WeChat. Do you want some high-definition sex movies? The message was followed by a picture, a photo of a young man and woman with their faces covered, presumably in a hotel. The man was shirtless with a slender build, wearing only white underwear. The woman was wearing black lace lingerie. Although her face was not shown, her fair skin and sexy figure were enough to make anyone's blood boil. The picture was a bit blurry, though, and it looked like it had been taken from a video. The car owner group immediately became abuzz, and everyone was asking about the price. I shook my head and laughed lightly. This kind of small movie is only needed by those perpetual singletons. Naturally, someone like me with a girlfriend wouldn't be interested. Besides, my girlfriend Song Yaya is the university flower, not only beautiful but also famous for her devilish figure. I was about to quit when I suddenly noticed that the black lace underwear in the screenshot looked familiar, as if I had seen it somewhere. A week ago, I found out that my girlfriend Song Yaya had bought a set of black lace lingerie online. She had never worn such sexy lingerie in front of me before. Thinking that our 5th anniversary would soon be here, I suddenly blushed. Thinking about this, I clicked on the picture again and zoomed in. The woman whose face had been blurred by the mosaic had the same small red mole on her breast as Song Yaya. The sudden coincidence almost made me suffocate. I took out a cigarette from the drawer, lit it, calmed down a bit, and added Liang Ji's WeChat from the group. After purchasing the little movie with him, I sent him a big red envelope to ask him where the video came from. Liang stuttered for a long time before telling me the truth. He does data recovery, and this video was secretly copied by him when he helped a hotel staff member recover the memory card, thinking that he could make some money by selling it. It took me more than 10 cigarettes to watch the whole thing. There was no sound and the faces of the man and woman in the video were blurred, but the lower right corner of the video showed the recording time, which was 3 days ago. Where was Song Yaya 3 days ago? If I remember correctly, she was on a business trip in the next city with Lin Chen, the new designer in the company's design department. That designer was parachuted into the company 3 months ago with no work experience, and was hired directly. I stubbed out my cigarette and started frantically searching Song Yaya's closet for the black lace lingerie. If I could find it, wouldn't that prove that the person in the video wasn't Song Yaya? But I turned the house upside down and couldn't find it. Instead, I found a pair of white men's underwear and a hotel invoice in Song Yaya's bag. I never wear white underwear. I clutched the underwear, fighting the urge to vomit. There was a red mark on the front of the underwear, shaped like a kiss mark from lipstick. I frowned and recalled that this was the same underwear that the man in the video was wearing. I sat on the bed for a long time, until I had smoked a whole pack of cigarettes, before I took a photo of the underwear and the invoice and threw them in the trash. Song Yaya had cheated on me. She had cheated on me with another man. And I, stupidly, was still acting like her good guy at home, and doing her laundry for her. It was ridiculous. At 11:30 p.m., Song Yaya finally came home. She had obviously been working overtime, but she seemed in a good mood. This was very abnormal. I tried, hoarsely. Yaya, why don't we switch companies? I'm afraid that working overtime every day is too much for you. No. Song Yaya suddenly shouted, and then rolled her eyes. The Lin Group is at least a Fortune 500 company, and you're not some business elite, so where would you find a new job? This is just a waste of time. If it had been before, Song Yaya would have yelled at the top of her lungs that she wanted to quit, and would have cursed the company leader's ancestors for the weekend overtime. Song Yaya looked at me with some trepidation when she saw that I didn't react, and she came over, her lips almost touching mine with her lipstick. Under normal circumstances, I would have responded enthusiastically to her. But now, looking at her red lips, all it did was remind me of the lipstick stain on the couch. A wave of nausea rose in my stomach. Damn it, I had even given her this lipstick 2 days ago. Back at home, Song Yaya lay on her side, hugging her phone, and not letting go, with a sweet smile on the corner of her mouth from time to time, not noticing my unusual mood. Soon, she fell asleep with her phone in her hands. Seeing that she was sound asleep, I carefully took her phone out of her hand, unlocked it with my fingerprint, and flipped to her chat history with Lin Chen. Sure enough, the guy she cheated with was Lin Chen. They flirted with each other on WeChat without the slightest bit of restraint, and I shrank under the covers, shaking with anger. Brother Chen, when are you going to announce our relationship? What, are you that impatient? I hate it. Hui Yunyuan seems like he's going to propose to me, and if you don't do something, I'm going to get taken by someone else. Him. He's not even worthy of competing with me. Look at yourself in the mirror. You're a complete loser. I don't care. I've had enough. I want to break up with him right now. No, it's great to have a free nanny at home, isn't it? If it weren't for the fact that he's licked me for so many years, I would have kicked him out a long time ago. Song Yaya had never spoken to me in such a condescending tone before. Haha, since she is determined to dump me for someone better, I will let her. I wonder if she has heard the saying, the higher you climb, the harder you fall. I turned off my phone and put it back in place, then closed my eyes. Song Yaya was my first love, and the girl I had toiled to win. I come from a single-parent family, my parents divorced a long time ago. I grew up with my father, who is paralyzed after a car accident, and lives in a nursing home year-round. So I worked hard to earn money for college and living expenses. I knew my situation was not ideal, so I let Yaya have her way and did my best to give her the best. After graduation, we both joined the Lin Group, she in the finance department, me in sales. The company does not allow office romances, so we kept it a secret and never made it official. Many times, I wanted to quit my job and find another one so that I could be with her openly, but she wouldn't agree. She said she liked ambitious men, and she thought I was the most handsome and charming when I was working. Now it seems that what she meant was that I was the most handsome when I spent money on her. If I quit my job, I might not be able to find such a well-paid job again. If I earn less, how can I afford to support her? Although sales is a bit more tiring, it pays more. Yaya's hometown is in the countryside, and she has a younger brother. Most of the money she earns goes to support her family back home, so I am responsible for all the expenses of living with her. When she learned that I was such a poor guy, her father was so angry that he fell seriously ill. I repeatedly promised her family that I would earn enough money to marry Yaya, but they secretly set her up on blind dates without telling me. After working hard for a few years, I finally saved enough money to buy a house and planned to propose to Yaya, but then I suddenly received a phone call from her mother. Song Yaya's younger brother Song Cheng had borrowed money from loan sharks, and the interest had snowballed into a huge sum. If he didn't pay up, they were going to chop off one of his legs. I took the money I had saved up to buy a house and used it to pay off Song Cheng's debt, and everything went back to square one. I started again from scratch. Soon after, a rich second-generation designer named Lin Chen was transferred to the design department of my company. I saw a different sparkle in Song Yaya's eyes. Song Yaya began to get closer and closer to Lin Chen, and she worked overtime more and more. Several times I saw Lin Chen driving a luxury car home drunk with Song Yaya. But when I showed a little jealousy, Song Yaya's slightly drunk face turned cold. Hui Yunyuan, if you had made something of yourself, would you have needed me to work so hard? I was blind to waste 5 years of my youth on you, so that while others have their own homes, I can only squeeze in with you in a rented room. She probably was drunk, as she spoke these words almost shouting. I closed my eyes and didn't say anything. Song Yaya didn't know about Song Cheng's debt repayment, and I didn't want to add to her burden. Now it's become my fault. Song Yaya looked at me in silence and snorted, her drunkenness deepening. You're just my boyfriend, so why do you restrict my freedom of association? People always want to go higher, and if you don't want to improve yourself, do you want to drag me down with you into the gutter? That Lin Chen, I heard that he is the son of the chairman of the Lin Group. I am partly responsible for not being able to give Song Yaya the life she wants, but that is no reason or excuse for her to cheat on me. Does she really think I'm some brainless lapdog who'll do whatever she tells me? I hired a private investigator to investigate Lin Chen, and I was surprised to find out something. It turns out that Lin Chen not only has an ambiguous relationship with Song Yaya, but also has a rich girlfriend a few years older than him. One man with 2 women, and still working, he's a real-time management master. A colleague told me that Lin Chen's computer desktop is a family photo of him and the chairman, as if he's afraid that people don't know his identity. I took the pictures of the underwear and invoices I had taken earlier, found the hotel room where Song Yaya stayed on business trips, and then found the hidden camera in the room based on the camera position. I pulled out the camera and found the person in charge of the hotel with the video on my phone, and asked him to give an explanation. At first, the other party denied everything, but only after I said I was going to call the police did he admit it. No wonder Song Yaya has been traveling frequently recently. It turns out she and Lin Chen have met here more than once. I pitied her for the hard work of business trips, and even hand-washed her underwear for her. The hotel manager, feeling guilty, asked me how much compensation I wanted. I raised an eyebrow and said I didn't want any compensation. But I had a condition: if Song Yaya and Lin Chen came to this hotel to meet in secret again, he had to tell me in time. In addition, I also wanted the right to watch this surveillance video at any time. The other party couldn't guess my intentions, but didn't want to offend me, so he had to agree to my demands. A big drama of catching an adulterer was about to begin. Not long after I got home, Song Yaya's parents suddenly arrived, looking flustered. "Auntie and uncle, why are you here?" As soon as Song's mother entered the door, she sat down on the sofa and started crying. "Xiao Yuan, you have to save our Ching Ching." My heart sank. What was this about? The last time Song Yaya's parents contacted me was when Song Ching borrowed money from loan sharks, and apart from that, their family had never given me a good impression. I had a bad feeling. Sure enough, from Song's mother's rambling, I could tell what had happened. Song had been honest for a while after I paid off the loan sharks, but after a while, he started feeling itchy again. He took all the savings and gambled again when his family wasn't looking. Not only did he lose, but he also owed a huge gambling debt. The old couple had no choice but to come to me and ask for help again. "Haha, haven't you always said I'm a loser? Why do you suddenly want to remember me now?" Song Yaya had justifiably cuckolded me, and the Song family had treated me like a leech. I was a big grudge bearer. I sneered inwardly, but on the surface I pretended to be very anxious and comforted. "Auntie, it's just that I plan to propose to Yaya in a few days. Once we get married, her problems will become my problems, and I will take care of my younger brother." What she meant was that only after marriage can you become family, and if you don't get married you are nothing. Upon hearing this, Song's mother immediately grabbed my hand with tears in her eyes. "Xiao Yuan, I knew you were a good boy, and I will leave our Ching Ching in your care." I then showed an expression of embarrassment. "But I don't have that much money right now." "But don't worry, I just closed a big deal, and the bonus and commission will be almost $1 million, so I'm sure I can solve my brother's problem. But the money won't be available until next month." Songma was finally seeing hope, but when she heard what I said, she became worried again. "But Ching Ching can't wait that long." The other side said that if the money isn't raised within 3 days, they'll break his legs. Fine, break them. A gambler's legs are useless anyway. Although I thought this in my heart, I couldn't say it out loud. "How about this, you can first mortgage your house to get a loan to pay off the gambling debt, and I will transfer the money to you as soon as my bonus is paid. That way, there will still be hundreds of thousands of dollars left, and I will transfer it all together at that time as the betrothal gift for Song Yaya and I getting engaged." As soon as Song's mother heard that I was going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in betrothal gifts, she immediately stopped crying and turned to Song's father for advice. Song's father frowned and nodded, and said that there was no other way. I told them not to tell Song Yaya about this, as I didn't want to burden her. Song's mother took my hand and praised me for being sensible. I was having a hard time not grimacing from all the fake smiling. Soon after Song's parents left, Song Yaya returned in Lin Chen's luxury car. The two of them spent a long time downstairs before going upstairs. "Fine, very well, since your whole family is ganging up on me, I'll settle old scores as well as new ones. Song Yaya's birthday was coming up soon, so I bought her a gold necklace. Although the two of us had been in a cold war, she accepted my gift very quickly, and then continued to give me the cold shoulder. A miniature listening device was placed in the pendant of that necklace. This way, whenever Song Yaya and Lin Chen went on a date and got close, I would send reminder messages to Lin Chen's girlfriend using a network simulation number, so that she could keep an eye on Lin Chen, who was about to commit adultery. Many times, Song Yaya's date with Lin Chen would be suddenly interrupted in the middle, and she would go home with a long face. Under the close scrutiny of Lin Chen's girlfriend, Song Yaya's chances of meeting Lin Chen in private were significantly reduced. Song Yaya's temper became increasingly short-tempered as a result, and she took it out on me at every turn. But I didn't indulge her as I had before. Whenever she scolded me, I would retort. Song Yaya was a little incredulous when she saw my suddenly tough attitude. She said I had changed. Haha, who changed first? A woman who cheated on her husband has the nerve to say I've changed. I also got some new information about the hotel. Lin Chen seems to have a special fondness for that hotel room. Every time he goes on a business trip to the next city, he stays in the same hotel room, but with a different woman. I recorded all of this on screen and saved it. I was waiting for the right moment, waiting for Lin Chen and Song Yaya to fall for the bait. Finally, Song Yaya couldn't hold back any longer, and used the excuse of a business trip to go to the next city to meet Lin Chen in secret again. I raised the corners of my mouth and called Song Yaya's parents and brother. Hello, aunt and uncle, are you free tomorrow? I want to propose to Yaya tomorrow and let you all witness this moment together. And my bonus will arrive tomorrow, so let's celebrate together after I propose successfully. Yes, yes, yes. Song Yaya's parents are happy to come and witness my marriage proposal. After all, if I succeed, it means they can get the money to pay off their debts. Not only that, but they will also get a bride price of several 100,000 yuan, which is a unique amount in their village, and will make them very popular. I not only brought Song Yaya's family, but also prepared other surprises for Song Yaya and Lin Chen. Watching the surveillance footage on my phone, I waited until the two of them had taken off their clothes and were about to get down to business, before barging into their room with a large group of people. Pop, pop, pop. After the staff let off a room full of fireworks, they saw the two of them lying naked on the bed in the room. Everyone at the scene was stunned. Lin Chen's rich girlfriend took two strong men and dragged Lin Chen off the bed, where they started to beat him. You backstabber, I signed all the company's orders for you, and you went whoring behind my back. Lin Chen was beaten up and screamed, jumped off the bed and tried to dodge, but was dragged back by the big man. Song Yaya on the bed was naked, clutching the quilt tightly, dazed, and heard someone call her a prostitute, and she cursed. You're the whore. A colleague from the company sneered. Isn't that right? Her official girlfriend is here, so what are you if not a whore? Song Yaya was so stunned that she couldn't say anything for a while, and her face turned red. Just then, Song Cheng squeezed in. Sister, how did you end up lying with this man? Song Cheng was holding his phone and filming, looking puzzled. He had planned to record the important moment of my marriage proposal, to ingratiate himself with me, the fool who helped him pay off his debts, but instead he captured evidence of Song Yaya's infidelity. I saw that the time was right, so I put on a sad face and rushed up to him, slapping him. Perhaps I hit him too hard, because he was stunned and didn't react for a moment. Then I threw the rose and ring in front of Song Yaya's face, with tears in my eyes. Yaya, today I was going to propose to you, but you cheated on me with another man. You've let me down. I forgave you for cheating before, and I thought you would change for the better, but I never thought you would. Break up with me. Song's mother was dumbfounded when she heard this, and quickly explained. Xiao Yuan, Song Yaya must have her reasons. You two have been in a relationship for so many years, you can't just break up. Song's mother pulled Song Yaya off the bed. Yaya apologized to Xiao Yuan. Song Cheng also chimed in. Sister, you should apologize. That way, I'll have the money to pay off my debt. Yuan even said he'd pay a few 100,000 yuan in bride price to marry you. Song Yaya was furious when she heard this. Why? I'm not apologizing. And I'm not marrying him. Why should I spend my whole life paying off Song Cheng's debt? Are you marrying your daughter or selling her? Pang. A slap landed on Song Yaya's face. You ungrateful girl. This is your own flesh and blood. Song's father's hand trembled, and he wanted to hit her again, but Song's mother stopped him. Seeing that the desired effect had been achieved, I sneered inwardly, pretended to be grief-stricken, and slammed the door behind me. My colleague who was with me was worried that Lin Chen would react and call the police, or even retaliate against me. I assured him that I had evidence in my hands that Lin Chen was playing around with several women, and that he would not dare to call the police. Compared to suffering this silent loss, Lin Chen was more afraid that this matter would become public and be known to Chairman Lin. With the help of some embellishments from colleagues, the company's leadership soon learned about Lin Chen and Song Yaya's affair. Office romances were not allowed in the company, and Lin Daishao and his friends dared not touch them, so they had no choice but to fire Song Yaya. To show some humanity, they gave her a month to wrap up her work. After learning this, Song Yaya ignored the stares of her colleagues and made a scene in the leadership's office. It's just a job, she said with disdain. Then she touched her belly and said with a sneer. In no time at all, I'll be the company's young mistress, and you won't be able to stop crying and begging me. Ha ha, young mistress. Song Yaya really wanted to fly high and become a phoenix. Unfortunately, she really did have a chance to become the young mistress. My bonus finally arrived. With the money, I immediately bought a house that I had liked for a long time, and was going to find a moving company to help me move. Unexpectedly, before the moving company arrived, Song's mother was already waiting for me at the door. She was carrying a thermos and looking at me with a servile expression, saying that I had worked hard, and that she had stewed a chicken for me to replenish my energy. I knew what she was up to. She just wanted me to make up with Song Yaya, and help Song Cheng pay off the mortgage. It seemed that Song Yaya hadn't told her about Lin Chen, otherwise, with Lin Chen as her golden husband, she wouldn't have looked at me. I took the thermos and put on an overly sad expression. Thanking her. Auntie, don't you know that Yaya already has a new boyfriend? He is the son of our company's chairman, and he drives a luxury car to take Yaya to and from work every day. I love Yaya very much, but if someone can give her more happiness, then I am willing to sacrifice myself to bless her. This house holds so many of our memories, I am going to move, otherwise seeing these things will make me think of her. Before I could finish speaking, Song Yaya's mother could no longer hide her joy on her face. You're saying that our Yaya is with the son of your company's chairman? I nodded, forcing a few tears to come to my eyes. And Yaya already has her child. Song's mother's eyes twinkled and she snatched the thermos from me, saying perfunctorily as she walked away. Xiao Yuan, it's our Yaya who isn't good enough for you. You can definitely find a better girl. You said Yaya is pregnant, so I need to give her some nourishment. I'll take this chicken soup to her first, and I'll come visit you again if I get the chance. After saying this, Song's mother went downstairs without looking back, her mouth curving up in a smile that she could hardly hold back. I leaned against the door and watched her leave. Song Yaya's whole family is trash, so I'll just consider them my gift to Lin Chen. Cheap men and trashy women should be locked up for life, so they don't go and harm other people. The sales department and finance department of the company were not close to each other, and I was always running around outside, so it was half a month before I saw Song Yaya again. She was wearing sunglasses in broad daylight, but she still couldn't hide the bruises on her face. I heard that Lin Chen didn't help her brother pay off his mortgage, so her parents were forced to sell the house. She was beaten by her father and kicked out of the house. At the moment, she was cornering Lin Chen in the water bar and asking him, "Didn't you say that after we broke up, you would be with me openly and honestly? I've done the accounts you asked me to do, and I don't want to keep going on like this without knowing what's going on." Before Song Yaya could finish speaking, Lin Chen quickly covered her mouth and looked around warily before letting his guard down. He put his arm around Song Yaya and comforted her. "Just give me some more time and soon we can be together." "Really? I've really had enough of this kind of life. Even if I can wait, he can't." As she spoke, Song Yaya's hand caressed her stomach. "Really, I promise." Watching the two of them promise each other, I suddenly felt very amused. Song Yaya had a child and lost her job, and despite all her sacrifices, she had not yet become Lin Chen's official girlfriend. Lin Chen may appear to be successful, but behind the scenes, he is involved in all sorts of unsavory activities. Song Yaya is so foolish as to think she has climbed onto a high branch. If it were before, I would give her a hand, but now, I have decided to respect her choice. As for Lin Chen, he has repeatedly threatened to fire me. He says he knows I set up the hotel business, that I have humiliated him, and that he will not let me go. It seems that young Master Lin doesn't know the company's rules very well. He is so stupid, and he and Song Yaya are a perfect match. I tried hard to keep my eyes from rolling back in my head as I mocked. I am the company's newly promoted sales manager and also the employee with the best performance this year. Only the headquarters has the authority to dismiss me, and I'm afraid young Master Lin does not have this authority. Why don't you go home and beg your mother? Soon, the company's new product seminar will begin. Lin Chen, as the representative of the design department, will go on stage to demonstrate the styles of the new season's women's shoes. As I listened to his explanation, I shook my head helplessly. This year's shoes in City A are definitely not going to sell well. Why? Lin Chen and I have never gotten along, and some people think I'm deliberately picking on him. I put down my pen and explained. Because City A gets a lot of rain, and Lin Chen's shoes only focus on style, and the materials he chooses are not waterproof, so the customer repurchase rate and reviews will probably be very low. What does a salesperson know about design? Big brand shoes aren't waterproof and they sell out just the same, right? Lin Chen was very unconvinced and wanted to prove himself. But we sell affordable women's shoes, and we go for a cost-effective route. Don't you think your design is too impractical? The company's leadership also nodded in agreement with me. Sure enough, a month later, after Lin Chen's design shoes were launched, sales were poor, and they were almost out of season. The inventory was not cleared, and they could only be sold at a reduced price. Because of the poor performance, the branch manager was very frustrated with Lin Chen, but because of his relationship with the chairman, he could not say anything. He could only complain to me every day. If things continued like this, he would be criticized by the chairman at the company's annual meeting, and I, as the sales manager, would probably lose my job. I patted him on the shoulder to comfort him. This company was built by Chairman Lin with his own hard work. This famous businesswoman would never blame and punish the company's employees because of an incompetent son. Before long, the annual company meeting arrived. I heard that the company would select one person from the branch to be transferred to the headquarters to learn and be a reserve cadre. Everyone was guessing who that person would be. My colleagues all felt that it would be me, because I had the best performance in the company. Only Lin Chen looked smug, as if he had already been appointed by the headquarters. At this annual meeting, not only were there leaders from the branch and the head office, but also senior executives from other partner companies, including Lin Chen's rich ex-girlfriend. After the entertainment program, the host announced that the person going to headquarters to study was, as expected, Lin Chen. My colleagues at the branch office were very angry and felt aggrieved for me, as if they were the ones who had been passed over. Lin Chen sat next to the chairman of the board, looking at me provocatively with a posture of a victor. As for Song Yaya, she was always inseparable from Lin Chen. Her belly was already showing, and she kept trying to get close to the chairman, already presenting herself as the chairman's daughter-in-law. However, the chairman had been talking about work with Lin Chen's rich ex-girlfriend and had not paid any attention to her. Song Yaya could not interrupt, and she looked anxious like a jumping clown. The annual meeting was nearing its end, and the chairman, Lin Yating, gave her final speech. In fact, there is one more very important thing I want to announce at today's annual meeting. I want to introduce my son to everyone here. The originally noisy venue suddenly fell silent. Everyone looked forward to Lin Chen in the front row, with Song Yaya sitting next to him, her back straight as if she were about to be crowned the next moment. Lin Yating paused for a moment, looked around the audience and finally landed on me. He has always worked hard and achieved some results, but he doesn't want to be special, so he wants to start from the grassroots and take one step at a time. But I'm getting old and a little out of shape. Yun Yuan, would you like to come to my side and help me share the load? After Lin Yiting finished speaking, she held out her hand towards me with a determined look in her eyes. There was a unique kind of intimidation about her that comes with being a strong woman, and there was also a hint of expectation in her gaze. The stage crew immediately and very understandingly shone the spotlight on me. At that moment, I was glowing, as if I were the chosen one. Amidst the surprise of everyone present, I smiled and slowly got up, walked onto the stage, and placed my hand in Lin Yiting's. I was of course willing. The reason I was chosen by God was not because of luck, but because I was God's child from birth. I'm not lying, I did grow up in a single-parent family. My father loved my mother very much, but they divorced when I was very young. Because my mother's white moonlight male god divorced and returned to China, he also brought back a son. From then on, my mother began to work overtime frequently, stay out late at night, and she and my father quarreled more and more. Not long after, my father had a car accident and became a paraplegic. The driver of the car fled the scene. My father gave up for a while but eventually chose to support my mother. In the end, he chose to give up his assets in order to get custody of me. I hated my mother's white knight, and I hated even more the way this third party's son called her mom in a flattering way. So from then on, I never called Lin Yiting mom again, and I never spent a penny of her money. It wasn't until shortly after I started working that I found out that the chairman of this company was Lin Yiting. But to me, she was just a stranger with whom I shared a blood relationship. The first time I went to the headquarters to find her was because Song Yaya had suffered unfair treatment at the company, but I was unable to help her. Watching my girlfriend being bullied and unable to fight back, I could only bow my head and find Lin Yiting, hoping that she could do justice. Lin Yiting said that Song Yaya didn't even have the ability to handle such things, and that she wasn't qualified to be her daughter-in-law. I asked her in return, "Are you qualified to be a good mother?" I told Lin Yiting that I had already decided on Song Yaya, and that I would marry her in this lifetime. In the end, Lin Yiting agreed to my request and promised that she would not reveal my identity for the time being. I also promised her that after I successfully proposed to Song Yaya, I would go to the headquarters to take over her job. But fate played a trick on me, as Song Yaya was snatched away by Lin Chen, the son of Lin Yiting's white moonlight male god. Lin Chen was originally named Zhou Chen, but in order to please Lin Yiting, he changed his name to Lin Chen. After the annual meeting, Lin Yiting asked me what was going on with Song Yaya. I looked at Song Yaya, who was pale, and Lin Chen, who was shocked, and gritted my teeth. "Isn't this taken away by your good son?" It turns out that the third party can also be inherited. Lin Yiting was taken aback by what she heard and then sighed. "Yun Yuan, it's not what you think. I haven't remarried all these years because I want to be able to leave you the fruits of my hard work in this life. No matter how much you hate me, you are still my only son. Your Uncle Zhou has always wanted Lin Chen to work in the company, and I thought about arranging for him to work for you, so that you might look after each other. I never thought things would turn out like this. I, as your mother, have failed you." I sneered. "There is nothing to be sorry for. I will keep my promise. If you really want to blame someone, blame me for being as bad at judging people as my father was." Seeing Lin Yiting's disappointment, I sighed. "If you still have a conscience, go visit him in the nursing home. He has always missed you." After I finished speaking, I turned my head and left the meeting. I didn't expect Lin Chen to chase after me. He looked at me with disdain. "So you are the child that your godmother never raised? You're so hypocritical. If you're so capable, don't come back. I've been by my godmother's side since I was a child, fulfilling all the duties of a son. Why do you have to take everything away from me just because you've appeared?" I raised my eyebrows, thinking to myself, does this person have some kind of serious illness? Could it be that after living in a rented house for a long time, he also feels that the house is his own? Take it. It was originally mine. Even if I don't want it, it's not yours. I glanced at Song Yaya next to me and pointed at her and said to Lin Chen, "You want to know why? Then you tell me. Why did I lose the girlfriend I'd been dating for 5 years to you? Was it because I wasn't good enough for her?" As I said this, I glanced back at Song Yaya, only to catch her gaze. She looked like she wanted to say something, but I guess she was already regretting it. Adults have to learn to take responsibility for their own choices. She was the one who struggled to jump from the tree to the gutter, no one forced her. I was going to headquarters for cadre training, and I started handing over my work. My colleagues were reluctant to let me go. The leaders were also a little guilty, saying that if they had known I was Lin Dong's son, they would not have given me so many work tasks. They even gave Lin Chen a nickname, the chairman's cheap son. After the annual meeting, Song Yaya began to block me in front of the company with her big belly, but I cleverly avoided her. That day, I was handling work handovers at the company as usual. Suddenly the phone rang. It was Antigua, the caregiver at my father's nursing home. Antigua's voice was very low. "Hello, is this Xiaohua? Someone came to visit your father today, but it was a stranger, so I'm not at ease and wanted to let you know." I frowned. Could it be that Lin Yiting had gone to visit my father? Was she a well-kept lady with short hair? No, it was a young man and a woman with a big belly. They looked sneaky and not like good guys. My head buzzed. Could it be Lin Chen and Song Yaya? What were they doing there? I quickly dropped what I was doing, hailed a cab, and headed for the nursing home. My father has been in a high-level paralysis, and has been lying in bed for many years. His consciousness is sometimes clear and sometimes vague. The doctor said that he must not be subjected to any stimuli, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. When I arrived at the hospital, my forehead was already covered in beads of sweat. I stopped at the door to my father's room, steadied my breathing, and just heard a voice coming from the doorway. "Uncle Hua, how come you weren't killed in that car accident back then? It seems that old Joe still had mercy. Back then, you couldn't beat my father, and now your son can't beat me. What can your son do by going to his godmother's side? His girlfriend of 5 years didn't go with him. But it's good that he's still alive. Sooner or later, I'll let you watch how your son loses to me." I was shocked. Could it be that my father's car accident was related to Lin Chen and his son? As he spoke, Lin Chen put his arm around Song Yaya, lightly touched her stomach, and said, "You see, this one inside is my son." My father was lying on the bed, his face red, veins bulging on his arms. Even his breathing had become much heavier, and the sound of the monitor began to intensively beep. Lin Chen, having been snubbed at the annual meeting and by the company, had come here to find a sense of superiority. I couldn't hold back any longer, so I pushed open the door and was about to kick Lin Chen when I was stopped by the nurse standing nearby. He gestured at the surveillance camera in the room and said that if I acted rashly, I would be taken away by the police. Lin Chen laughed heartily when he saw me clenching my fists in anger. I stared at Lin Chen and said coldly, "Was your father involved in my father's car accident back then?" "Ha ha ha, so what if we were involved? Do you have any evidence?" "No." "If you don't, what's the point of shouting here?" "You." Lin Chen's words were not finished when I punched him in the jaw, and blood immediately flowed from the corner of his mouth. Song Yaya exclaimed in alarm and quickly went over to help Lin Chen. Lin Chen looked incredulous. "How dare you hit me? I'm calling the police." I went up and punched him again. "Call, or shall I help you?" I took out my phone in front of Lin Chen's face. "Hello, Officer Su. The murderer of the hit and run accident 20 years ago has been found." I paused, glanced at Lin Chen, and said, "By the way, I'd like to report that Lin Chen, the designer of the Lin Group, used his position to conspire with Song Yaya, an employee in the finance department, to embezzle funds and falsify accounts." "You want evidence?" I raised an eyebrow and said, "I already sent it to your email 10 minutes ago, so check it." After I hung up, I looked at Lin Chen and Song Yaya again. Song Yaya's face was pale. "How did you know?" Lin Chen wiped the blood at the corner of his mouth, his expression almost crazed. "Even if you have evidence, so what? I'm the godmother's son, who dares to touch me?" Just then, the door to the ward was kicked open. "No one dares to touch you, I dare." Before I came to the nursing home, I called Lin Yiting. At the moment, Lin Yiting was standing at the door of the ward with 2 bodyguards, her face full of anger. Xiaochen, you have let me down. I arranged for you to work in the branch office, hoping to give you a good workout so that you could come to the headquarters. But I never expected that you would falsify the accounts and secretly embezzle 20 million from the company's accounts. As soon as Lin Chen saw Lin Yiting arrive, he immediately lost his momentum. He hurriedly went up to her and grabbed her arm. Godmother, it's not what you think. Lin Yiting coldly shook off his hand. Lin Chen panicked. He pushed Song Yaya in front of Lin Yiting. It's Song Yaya who seduced me and made me do it. Song Yaya was shocked. Lin Chen, how can you say that? It was obviously you. Who? Flashed me. Before Song Yaya could finish her sentence, she was slapped by Lin Chen and fell to the ground. He looked at Song Yaya with a vicious glare, as if he were looking at an enemy. Song Yaya fell to the ground and never got up. Her brows were knitted together and she kept moaning. Then, a red liquid flowed down her thighs. Song Yaya had had a miscarriage. Because the pregnancy was too advanced, the doctor had to induce labor, but there was heavy bleeding. In order to save the baby, Song Yaya's womb was removed. She could never have children again. Song Yaya lay on the hospital bed, her eyes vacant. Lin Chen passed Song Yaya's bed when he was handcuffed by the police. Song Yaya forgot Lin Chen for a moment and muttered. You killed our child. Lin Chen muttered as if talking to himself. Who knows if it was my child? Upon hearing this, Song Yaya suddenly struggled up like crazy to tear at Lin Chen. As a result, she fell heavily to the ground as soon as she got out of bed due to lack of strength and could no longer get up. A week later, Lin Chen was sentenced to 3 years in prison for embezzlement, with evidence proving his guilt. The day he went to prison happened to be the day I reported to the headquarters. Lin Chen's father was also found to be involved in the hit and run case that year, and was being interrogated at the police station. After Lin Yiting handed over the company to me, I had a lot more free time, so I started visiting my father in the nursing home. Although he was still unconscious, his mood was visibly more stable, and his condition gradually improved. The doctor said that the heart disease still needs to be treated with heart medicine, and this medicine was considered to be the right medicine. 3 years later, I officially took over from Lin Yiting, and became the chairman of the Lin Group. It was another annual meeting. On the way to the venue, I passed by a market. I rolled down the window and saw a thin woman with a haggard look selling children's toys from a stall. A little boy couldn't resist the temptation of the toys and knelt in front of the stall, reluctant to leave. The frail woman looked at the little boy blankly, a little lost in thought. My baby would be this big if he were still alive. As she spoke, she reached out to take the little boy's hand, but perhaps she used too much force, and the little boy cried out in alarm. A man who looked fierce and evil came over at the sound of the boy's cry, and kicked the woman in the stomach. Crazy bitch, you can't bear a son yourself, and you still want to touch my son. If you touch him again, I'll kill you. The woman's brow was furrowed, her face was in pain as she covered her stomach and lay on the ground. At that moment, I suddenly felt that she looked familiar. It turned out to be Song Yaya. I hadn't seen her in a few years, and she had changed so much that I almost didn't recognize her. Perhaps she felt my gaze, because Song Yaya tilted her head and looked over at me. She opened her mouth as if she recognized me, but in the end she didn't make any sound. She just lay on the ground with an empty look in her eyes, wondering what she was thinking. We looked at each other for 2 seconds, and in the end I sighed and rolled up the window. When we arrived at the annual meeting venue, before we even entered, we were stopped by the person in charge of the venue hotel, Mr. Jiang. Oh dear, Mr. Hua, you really are a busy person. I've tried to meet you so many times, but you were never there, so I had to stop you at the annual meeting venue. I laughed and responded, but in the corner of my eye I saw a familiar face among the hotel security guards. My eyes darkened and I felt a little displeased. President Jiang is really a warm-hearted person, recruiting any employee. President Jiang was confused and didn't know what I meant. I waved my hand and walked directly up to Lin Chen. Lin Chen, long time no see, I really didn't expect that you would be released from prison so soon. Lin Chen was wearing the clothes of a security guard, his face turning white and then red, but he couldn't act out of respect for his job. I heard that after Lin Chen was released from prison, because of his criminal record, he was immediately blacklisted by major companies and enterprises and could no longer work in his previous job. I just didn't expect him to end up working as a security guard. The person in charge of the hotel understood what was going on as soon as he heard it. After all, Lin Chen's incident caused quite a stir in the industry back then. He scolded the security team leader angrily with a dark face, and said he wanted to fire Lin Chen. I quickly stepped forward to stop him. "Mr. Jiang, please don't. After all, Lin Chen is the godson of the former chairman of the board. Do me a favor." "Yes, yes, yes." Mr. Jiang quickly agreed with a smile, then gave Lin Chen a fierce glare. And said, "Don't forget to thank Chairman Huo for saving your job." As I watched Lin Chen grit his teeth and bow his head in apology, I couldn't help sneering inwardly. Lin Chen, this is your day." The annual meeting finally came to an end. Surrounded by the company's top management, I went up to give a speech. My father had regained consciousness, and Lin Yiting was pushing his wheelchair as she sat in the front row of the venue, looking at me with a face full of relief. As she had wished, I had successfully taken over the company. As I had wished, it seemed that our family had returned to the happy way it had been. It was just that I had been waiting for this day for many years. And